Brian, you've been the anchor of NBC Nightly News for almost a decade now, a long career in news. I have to ask you, why news, why broadcasting? What lit that fire?
Walter Cronkite, sitting at home watching the world go by in black and white. We had no idea there was any other way to watch it. And looking back, it must have looked like an oil painting. Early TV. I was born in '59. And I couldn't imagine anything more exciting. I looked at this guy. We were a CBS family that I grew up in. And as soon as he said, that's the way it is, our dinner could start. And so that was a way my parents kind of told me, this is very important. We're going to watch it together, and we're going to learn what happened today. And it was an outlandish thing to dream what a job that would be. And for years of my life, decades of my life, I thought, well, that was nice. What a nice dream that would be. And then a series of accidents, fortunate events, some hard work in the mix. And here I am, one of these three jobs, the lucky recipient of having had the baton handed to me by Tom Brokaw.
What did you soak up in those days, maybe that you didn't even realize as a kid, as you're watching Walter Cronkite? And as you said, your family is telling you, this is important. Listen, observe. What kind of things do you think you learned?
It's the title of that children's book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. I would look at this guy, and of course, he had been on bombing missions in World War II. He was an older man than he looked, and he was a very young man the day he announced Kennedy's death. And here was Walter Cronkite in this hub of a room in New York. I just couldn't imagine how exciting that would be in there. My first day at Channel 2 News, when I was coming up on 57th Street, I asked to see the room. And it's just an office where they had a Formica cutout of the world behind him, a relief map. And it's very boring now. His little Formica desk has been given to a museum long ago. But when that's all you get to see in the frame, it looked like the world to me. And they would throw to reports from correspondents all over the world. Vietnam War was humming along, the Johnson presidency, the Nixon presidency. So I guess, to your point, I inhaled all of it. I watched how he would write, how he would deliver, how he would treat a moment, and how he would explain complex things to us folks watching at home.
Talking about treating an event, obviously with the 50-year anniversary of JFK's assassination, we all got to see over and over, and I couldn't get enough of it, how Cronkite treated that day. As a newsman now doing the same job, and you watch how he treated that news so delicately, and then when he has to deliver the news and has to catch himself, almost gets choked up, what do you think when you see that?
Well, don't forget, now we have the Kardashians. Now we got people yelling, screaming, and crying all day. We got a yelling and screaming, crying channel on cable just devoted to that. Back then, 1963, no one broke that line. No one showed any emotion. You could argue no one showed much humanity. We knew all these people on TV had private lives and emotions of their own, but no one really showed us that because there was an ideal for how to be. And there still is in my line of work and many other jobs in television. But just removing those massive glass frames of his voice caught. This was a guy he had just been with weeks earlier. This was a social friend of his, but this was our president. And that day, it seemed like our country was becoming unhinged.
When you get started in the business, best advice you ever got from anyone, something that stayed with you and has resonated with you throughout your career?
Be yourself. Tell it straight. I can check into a hotel room in whatever city I'm traveling to. I turn on the local news. I'm an addict. I love the medium I work in. And I can tell you which of the anchors has written their own material that night. I can tell you which ones go home and watch their work over and over again on tape. And which ones would be different when you meet them than they are on TV. The closest you can be to that same person, if you can get those lines really close, and kind of, when people meet you on the street, they have an expectation. They really want you to be a nice guy. They really want you to be like they've envisioned you to be. If you can get those close, I think you've got it made. You can be a good communicator. Remember, this the business you and I are in, you in your post-print days, is inviting ourselves into people's homes, asking people when there's Yankees news or world news to watch us. And so they want us to be a certain kind of person.
When you start your day, take me through a day where you know you're going to be on the air that day. There's events going on all around the country. What are you looking, all around the world? What are you doing? Who are you reading? What are you reading? How many phone calls are you making? How many meetings do you have to have?
A lot of meetings. The day really doesn't begin as much as the previous day doesn't end. I'm a night owl. We are up kind of looking at the moving pieces. The old expression, if you want to give God a good chuckle, tell him your plans for tomorrow. Well, there's really no way we can anticipate all that we're going to cover, but we can get correspondence in the stories we know we're going to want. So we got correspondents all over the world. We got bureaus all over the country and the world. I have a kind of balanced diet on the web. I still read print newspapers. I wake up, New York Post, New York Times, Daily News. I'm a lover of the New York Post sports section, among other things. And I read all kinds of stuff on the web. I probably visit the New York Times website more than any other place. But, we hear from our folks. We have a big enough news organization that our Los Angeles bureau, our London bureau, our Washington bureau call us with what they believe we should cover. That's when you know you work for a large, fully financed news organization. You can make and report your own enterprise work in addition to covering the electives and the must-do stories every day.
To hear you talk about your job and to hear you talk about watching Cronkite, it's clear that you love what you do. But I also know you love sports. If you had a job right now that was the equivalent in sports of what you do in news, and I would allow you to pick whatever you think the equivalent might be, do you think you would be as content, as happy, as passionate about that job as you are about your current job?
I would like to think if I were one of those wild men, inside or outside linebackers, calling out change in the defense as I watch the offense try to adjust to me. I always, despite the trouble he's had in his private life, I'm a wild man linebacker guy. I have loved Sam Huff. I have loved Jack Lambert. I have loved Lawrence Taylor. I've loved Dick Butkus. Those are the guys I admire. Crazy eyes. They only feed him once a day on game days. The great Jack Lambert quote, quarterbacks ought to wear skirts. I've never wanted to be the quarterback. I want to be the guy designed to take them down. And so that would be the position in sports that if God had given me better physical gifts, and I sure tried it in high school, that would be the position I'd want to play.
I read one article where you were self-deprecating about your high school football career. Not only did you come away with a knee injury that plagued you and that you had to have knee replacement surgery this year, but you called it, I think you said, one of the worst careers in New Jersey Catholic high school history?
I hate to correct you. It's been proven. We researched it. It was the worst career in the Coastal Catholic League of New Jersey high school history. And I'm not being modest. If I said anything else, there are people alive today with the evidence who could come forward and maybe even in a court of law prove it. I was horrible. I was about 161 pounds, 150 of that was heart. I really wanted to be good at it, I did weight training the entire summer between sophomore and junior year. The rare action I saw, my knee needed to be reconstructed. A helmet took it out. I had 2 more subsequent surgeries, and this August I got a new titanium part. So, yeah, never before has someone wanted to be good at something and fallen so short.
Now, how about we talk about sports on the field? How about if you had been a sports announcer? I was at the Army-Yankee game, and I remember you peeking into the booth with Al Leiter and Michael Kay. They wanted to talk to you, and there was action going on, and you said, guys, come on, chopper to third base. You took over the play-by-play.
Well, Leiter and Kay need constant focus because whatever bright, shiny object you hold in front of them, that will get their attention as opposed to the action on the field. So you used a bad example. Let's take professional announcer teams.
They're going to love this.
I doubt I would need to come into the booth and focus their attention, but Leiter and Kay are like two children in there, and they needed me, frankly, that day to focus attention on the field.
What has been for you in terms of sports? Take me inside your allegiance, whether it's Giants, Yankees, moments where you've been allowed to be a fan and you get so excited about what you see going on.
Well, I grew up in a broken home, meaning my father was from Boston, and I grew up a Yankee fan. So he understood when we lived in the Jersey Shore, New York area. He became a Mets fan later in life. So how you do that from Red Sox to Mets, he found his own way. I bleed Giants blue. I've always been a big New York Giants fan. And, you know, for a while coming up, you root for different teams. I did love the Steelers during the Bradshaw, Ham, Lambert era, Mike Webster, may he rest in peace. That was a fantastic era for football. Knicks fan until basketball, professional basketball kind of lost me. I got really busy, and you kind of have to siphon down the number of sports you have the bandwidth to follow. So that's it. I still am a very, very loyal Yankee fan, and I will always remain so.
I have to get your take on the 2014 Yankees. They're incomplete. I'm sure they have some more moves to make, but they've added McCann, they've added Ellsbury, they've added Beltran. Obviously, they lost Cano. Corrode is back. They're probably going to get another pitcher. What are your thoughts about them for next season?
I'll miss Cano. It's going to be interesting when the Mariners visit the Yankees. I don't know how many more Red Sox we're going to be forced to cheer for in Yankee uniforms. It's tough. It's difficult. When you go to the stadium, you can feel all of us suffering together. But there we are. Oh, we're so happy you're here. And
a couple of those former Red Sox, though, Clemens and Damon, helped them win World Series. You have to factor that in.
I miss Johnny D to this day. But I'm hopeful that 2014 will start in a robust way, and that I'm hopeful that no one liked the feeling of how 2013 ended.
Being around the Yankees at the winter meetings and talking to people, it's clear that there's a motivation to not let that happen again. This is obviously an organization that isn't used to not having games in October, and they seem to be making the strides to try and make sure that doesn't happen again.
Well, you know, I was listening to sports radio the other night, and a guy called in. This is a complaint you hear often. This is the #1 media market and the best and biggest metropolis in the country. This guy was being a little greedy. He said, why don't we have championship teams in all sports? And you know, I know that attitude is out there. Yankee fans are a delicate and difficult bunch sometimes. And imagine running the team. Imagine forming the team, sitting down with a blank slate. Of course, it's not a blank slate. And with salaries what they are, with gate receipts and media money what it is, I wouldn't want that job.